Welcome. Oh my goodness. Welcome everybody. It's just so thrilling to see you all coming in from all over the United States and Canada and over there far away and Scotland and just near and far from coast to coast, from the most rural areas. Cranbrook, we have folks from British Columbia to New York City. We have great groups from the boroughs of New York City. So it's just a fascinating, diverse group of folks. And we're so delighted that you're making the time to go on this journey together, which is how we think about this kind of learning experience. And so I'm Beth Mount, and I am one of the 6 hosts who I'll introduce as I talk about our flow. And I would like to just orient folks to the day and give you a sense of what we're doing together and how this is going to unfold. And so let's see, I have a couple of ways to do that. So can you see that? Am I up?
Mhm.
Okay, great. So yes, welcome to the Pathfinders Studio. And just a little bit of an overview of who's here. So there are going to be about 65 of us. And as I said, we're from all over, near and wide, small organizations, really small organizations, huge organizations. And so we have a huge variety in where we come from and what we're up to. But what we have in common, and we know this to be part of what has attracted people to sign up to spend this time together, is we have in common this great curiosity and sense of compassion and courage and commitment, particularly to individualized supports. So some of us have been doing this work for a really long time, building individualized supports. Some of us are coming in really new. Some of us are from very traditional organizations that are moving more towards individualization, and everything in between. Family members who are here out of concern and, of course, great interest for shaping the self-directed services that are available to people. And we, as your host, we reached out and had a conversation with almost every person here, almost all 60-ish of you, to just find out what matters to you and how you think about the work and what more is possible. And we heard such important themes. And it was very clear that what brings us all together is this united interest, curiosity in asking what more is possible. And how do we revitalize our sense of possibility, especially after 4 years of COVID, which kind of knocked the life out of lots of us and lots of the great energy that we've been building for a long time in the service of, in the interest of inclusion. And so we discovered from listening to you that supporting valued relationships and valued roles continues to be at the heart of what you're doing and what you feel called to do. And it was very touching to hear story after story about people feeling such heart for the work, caring so much about the people you support and the capacity to belong and the sense of how important the work is to show up for and be engaged in every day. And so we will be having as our guide experiences worth co-creating. We know that what brings us together is a sense of what more is possible, but we will be looking and listening deeper into the words we use. What do we mean by belonging and inclusion, self-direction, and so forth? We'll be going deeper into the choices that we each make every day to heighten a sense of possibility for the people that we're engaged with. And we'll be really listening for what is going on in and around our organizations that is either helping or hurting people find vitality in the work and find vision and really approach the work in a creative light. And so, whoops, here we go. What we've learned and how we've organized our time together is that every one of you, each person has a story of engagement in co-creating possibilities for people. And this, by the way, is artwork by Dan Traub, who's in our group. We'll be hearing more about his story as we move through these 8 weeks. And we just treasure this artwork because it kind of captures a sense of, okay, imagine that each of us is kind of has this star of possibility, is holding this star of possibility. Sometimes it feels like we're really alone and isolated. Sometimes it feels like the light's gotten kind of dim. But what are we going to learn and notice together by listening to our stories that revitalizes our sense of what we're doing together? And so as we listen and learn from each other, we'll be trying to lean into every one of these examples. Every one of your stories will matter. Some we'll hear about in the large group, but many will be shared in the small groups. And that brings me to how our flow is going to work. And just to let you know, being in this session is kind of a dance. We're going to really spend most of our time in small groups and conversations. Okay, so right now, this is me. I'm welcoming you. But in a few minutes, you're going to go into your first group, which we call your home base, and there'll be a check-in question. You'll meet in that home base group every time, all of these 8 weeks. So you'll get to know each other really well, and you'll all be from different organizations. And then after that, Jack Pierpoint will invite us into a little bit of thinking about the art of hosting and into the importance of reflection, both personal reflection and sometimes in the chat and sometimes all together. We're going to hear a shift story and an inquiry that captures where this theme of creativity has come from. David Hasbury will bring us into that. And then you'll go into another group, which we just are calling mixer groups. Think about that as a learning journey. You'll go into a different group that every week will be a different group of people. So perhaps in the course of our 8 weeks, you will find yourselves in conversation with everybody that's here today. After we come back from those learning journeys, Patty Scott will be framing some thoughts for design teams. And you'll have a little bit of time to reflect before you go into your design team. So what is a design team? So most of you are here in teams with other people from your organization. Some of you are in big teams of 7 and 8 people, some smaller. Couple we've combined just so that you can think together. But at the end of every one of our sessions, we hope you have at least 20 minutes to synthesize and integrate what it is that you're hearing and thinking about and bring that into each other's awareness. There'll be a harvest from that Linda and Patty will host. And then we'll be wrapping up with some other comments from Dave Hasbury about making and keeping connections. And John O'Brien will send us out into a week of reflecting on the words that we use. So that's our flow. And as you can see, when there's a green circle, you're in a group talking to other people, which is about to begin in just a minute. And in blue, someone is usually talking for a little bit and we're all together. And then in an orange block, we'll be harvesting, reflecting, and listening to each other. So we're listening for what more is possible. We're listening for the patterns that are define and color the work that people are doing that, whoops, time for me to finish. So that by listening to patterns, we can see more clearly the choices we have made and the choices that a storyteller is making. And hopefully that will help us find some insight along the way of how more can I make a difference. So we're about to go into our first breakout, and you're going to be sharing with each other something that you're longing for that brings you into this conversation, these 8 weeks together. And so in a nutshell, we feel that longing, we heard this from you in our interviews with you, that many of you are longing to continue and strengthen a direction that emerges from deep within. And we know from longing that we feel our way into it. And it will invite us, by beginning to talk about longing, it will invite us to hear from other people. What is our hunger and our thirst for a just and inclusive community? What different questions do each of us bring? And what do we notice about listening to each other? And so in just a minute, you will go into your first breakout, and it will be your home base. And obviously you're meeting for the first time, so you're going to want to say a little bit about who you are and where you're from, and see what you have to say briefly. What are you longing for that you imagine this time together might touch? Or another way to think about it is, what is a question that you bring to this space? So there we go. That's our beginning conversation. Linda, are we about ready to go? You're on mute.
Good to go.
Good to go. All right. So we'll see you all back here in 15 minutes. Be sure to divide the time as equally as you can. You might not exactly set a timer, but just pay attention so that everyone has a chance to be heard. Okay, let's go.